Welcome to Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension.
Welcome to another podcast episode of Merkaba Chakras. I'm your host, Vaughn Galt, and today we learn about grounding consciousness in higher levels of 5D reality with author Allison Pelot of Finally Thriving. And so with that, Allison, welcome to Merkaba Chakras. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. It's so fun to be here. I'm honored. It's such a pleasure. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know. We were just talking about before we started this episode recording about the serendipitous nature of how we came about and all of that. So for people who are going, what are you talking about? So in short, about a year and a half ago, I was doing book interviews for my Buddhism books. And I was reaching out to just different podcasters, different radio places, different sources for media coverage to have a book talk about the contents of Buddhist mandalas and Buddhist Guide, my three books. And I had sent an email to a comedian, Sam Tripoli of Tinfoil Hat, and it was just on my list of podcasts that were metaphysical. So I sent the email over, and he, serendipitous, had some people scheduled for that slot, and they canceled on him because of something that some kind of conflict last minute. And so they canceled on him. So he had an open slot all queued up and had no one to talk to. And then my email had come in right at that time. And he's like, oh my goodness. Yes, let's talk about Buddhist metaphysics and star seeds and aliens. Yes, those are great topics. And so the angels kind of slid me right into that time slot. And so I did that interview. And Allison Pelot's husband listens to that podcast for entertainment. And he listened to it and he said, oh my goodness, this is right up my wife's alley of interest, because she is into consciousness, metaphysics, wellness, and higher levels of health. And so he had her listen to it. And so she listened to it. And then she reached out to me. And then we became good acquaintances and friends. And I did her show. She did my show last year. And I said, you got to do a book. You got to write a book of all this great knowledge that you have been living. And so fast forward. I ordered my own copy of Allison Pelot's Finally Thriving book. And I love it. So next time you're up in the Seattle area, Allison, come to my house and give me an autographed copy. So
absolutely. Yes.
So serendipitous how that all works. And you just never know, the smallest connections lead to bigger and bigger, and it comes full circle.
Absolutely.
So congratulations on your new book. Let's go into it. So first of all, tell us, how did Finally Thriving come about from your perspective?
Yeah. So, gosh, and it was an interesting serendipitous, process for me, for sure. It was February 2020. I was at my dad's. I was helping him with a hip replacement surgery. And during that time, he passed away. I was luckily there, and I was able to help him pass by being present. And I think there's definitely some sacredness to being there with someone when they pass, because you're able to, there's just so many energetic shifts when that happens, when you're with someone and they pass away. He passed away peacefully. He really wanted to go. And I really had just such a interesting experience from that. My life really slowed down after that. And soon after, about 2 weeks after, the pandemic hit and all the gyms closed. I wasn't working anymore as a trainer in the same sense that I was. And then all of a sudden I had this time to do some writing, really get to some things that I hadn't been doing, but I'd always wanted to do. And what was interesting, why I bring up my father's passing, is because right after that, I had this download of information. Okay, the message was, it's time to write a book. And they said, well, we'll give you all the information. We're going to help you with this. So I said, okay, cool. And so I had, just prior to all of that happening, I'd read a book called The Artist Way. And she talked about morning pages and sitting down every morning and just writing whatever comes to mind. It's kind of like an automatic writing practice. And I started doing that right first thing in the morning. And it started very slowly, about 15 to 30 minutes, and snowballed into about 2 hours every morning of writing. And the thing that was different about that practice, as opposed to when I would try to write things, is I didn't think about what I was writing. I just kind of was a clear vessel for whatever wanted to come through. Much of it being, things that I had experienced, some of my stories, but also a lot of things that I had been integrating, but some things I had yet to integrate. And I was integrating through the writing of the book and through the whole process of the book, which was really interesting. So, during the course of the 6 months, I hired someone who could help me, could coach me through the rest of it, help me format it and edit it. And then I found a publisher that was really wonderful. And then I worked with them, and it just, I just learned the process of writing a book, which was really interesting. It was great because I decided, wow, I'm going to, instead of trying to do everything myself like I was doing before, I decided I would get support. I would hire people who would support me in this process so I could learn how to do it, but also be able to maintain the creative integrity that I wanted to include in the book. And so, as you know, there's a lot of, there's an action step after each chapter, but most of it's not complicated. The information itself is not complicated, intentionally, because I wanted people to be more in a reflective mode, because I thought, we've been inundated with so much information. It's time for us to create some space and just of reflection, just some space for ourselves, so we can slow down a bit and take this all in, because I feel like the way we had been doing it, and myself included, just wasn't working. I wasn't feeling fulfilled in my life. I wasn't feeling like I was doing the things I really wanted to do, because I wasn't creating the space for that. I was filling myself up with busyness all the time, and then trying to do the things on the side that were really important to me. So this was a way finally for me to be able to prioritize what I wanted to do in my life and acknowledge those desires within me. So I took that as an opportunity to write the book. And it really turned out better than I could have ever imagined. And I've shared this with some other people too, that the information sometimes is really great to get out, especially if you've been coaching or teaching for a long time and you've accumulated all this information. It's really great to just get it out of the body and share it with the world, because it doesn't do me any justice to hold it in either. So especially during that time of the pandemic, I'd seen all this stuff happening, and I was like, people need to have this information so they know how to navigate themselves naturally, like all these natural things we have already. How do you access that? How do you discern between what's true for you and what's not? And so I wanted to help people with all these issues I saw cropping up during that time. So that's basically how it came about. I just really felt like a deep need to serve much more in a bigger way. It was uncomfortable because I said, because I'd been really kind of hiding for some time and keeping myself pretty small and not wanting to put myself out there. But I felt called to do this because I felt like, number one, it's healing for me to be able to kind of step into a bigger stage for myself, but also to share this, like not keep it to myself. So yeah, it was a pretty incredible process, and really healing during that time too. It's still kind of a crazy time, but now it helped me deal with some of the things that were going on as well. So it gave me some purpose during that time.
That's good. That's good to hear. Now, let
Yeah.
me ask you this. Now, you said they downloaded this information and insight to, it's time to start writing. Who are they?
Well, the relationship I've cultivated since is source. It's the divine is what I call
Okay.
it. And I just, I just go directly to source at this point. Um, and so I find that's the easiest, cleanest way to do it, and I just make things like that very simple. I love hearing about like how everybody connects with their intuition and their higher
Mm-hmm.
self. Um, and that's just the way I do it is I just connect directly to source and I let that information come through me and it gets expressed however that it gets expressed. And
Mm-hmm.
so and that was the writing. Um, and so ever
Right.
since, I've been doing other things too, like with voice and stuff. But um, yeah, I just feel like that's what served me the most. And I wanted to teach other people how to connect in their own way, just provide a guide or a tool for people to be able to integrate the information that they're getting and also discern between the information that might not be for them, and the other information that would be right for them, more in line with them. But you have to get
Mm-hmm.
into alignment first yourself. So it includes, aligning the mind, connecting with the body, and then finally listening to the spirit. And
Right.
we haven't really been taught practically how to do those things. And I wanted to bring the practicality into it so that people felt like it was accessible to them. So that was a big thing that I wanted to kind of come across. And then also just open the mind up to creativity and just being open as a receiver,
Mm-hmm.
to everything.
Mm-hmm. So you touched about this on the book, and so there's a lot of content that people can go into. And what I really like about the book is it doesn't matter where you land. You don't have to start from the beginning, the middle, the end. You can pick any spot, and just they kind of sit on their own. They're
Yes,
like
exactly.
they're like little nuggets of wisdom that they kind of sit on their own. And so I like that that like they are independent thoughts of their own. Now, for people, and they can get more information in the book, but can you tell us the process of how you directly connect to God or source within? Like, what's your
Yeah.
process? What's your step by step?
I usually do a meditation and I included the meditation in the book as well. I do a couple different things, but usually I'll do a connecting to the light meditation. So I'll visualize myself coming up, connecting to the light. I kind of like it's kind of funny. I visualize myself as like a little superhero going up to the light and connecting, and then it coming down, and then it just comes down through the body, through the chakras, it filling my body, all cells of my body with loving light. And then and this is a meditation that was taught by by one of my teachers. And then you imagine this cord coming down into the earth, and connecting with a crystal, whatever color crystal you'd like it to be, is whatever comes up is what it is. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's different. Mine's usually pink. And I connect with the crystal, and then I also let go of like anything that isn't serving me. I kind of let that go down into the earth and compost.
Mhm.
And then I let that loving energy, that grounding energy of the earth come up and meet at the heart space and expand out past the planet and beyond, and filling it in with pure love frequency. So that's basically the quick and the dirty about how I just really connect.
Mhm.
Other times too, I connect through my voice. I'll do some vocal toning to clear each energy center, each chakra, so that I can also be a clear vessel, clear channel for that kind of expression. So yeah, that's those are my go-tos right there.
But those are very, very good go-tos, and they're in the book. And just for that light meditation, if people want to visualize it, it's just basically like a funnel of light coming down, and then you just imagine any kind of negative energy or dense energy or stuck energy in your body, just kind of put it down to the earth, let Mother Earth recycle it through, and then it comes back up. It's like kind of like a toroidal field, like an
Exactly.
apple.
Yeah.
Okay, so the energy field that's kind of how it is like. So and it's just a visual meditation that you do to kind of ground yourself as you work to connect directly with the God within you. Now, let me ask you this: for people who are doing that meditation, that they read through the book, or any other meditation that works for them, that has that outcome, how do you know you made that connection? Like, when the information is coming through, what happens to you?
Yeah. So once I can feel the light coming in. I've done it enough times where I can feel the clarity coming in, and really feeling grounded in the body. You may feel, when you do this meditation at first, you may feel a little bit, kind of tipsy, kind of like, woo, euphoric, but then after a while you get used to that. And for me, I just, once I've connected to it, I trust that when if, like, for example, when I'm on a podcast, I trust that whatever comes through is for the highest and greatest good of all who listen. And I just, I create that intention there. So, I kind of just feel, I guess I just don't think twice about it. I just talk.
Yeah. So, yeah. And so, for people who are trying to understand this, okay, so when they have proven this in science, that when you get to the part of kind of like a no thought,
Yes.
that is pretty much the point in which you're having that connection to source, because um, your 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 brain cannot have two thoughts at the same time. They cannot serve two masters. You physically cannot think of two things at the same time. Try it, it's not gonna happen. So when you're doing these meditations, the really quick meditation that I do is a old Hindu Buddhist technique. And basically you just focus on your thought. And when you're focusing on your thought, you're focusing on, what are you thinking of? And the minute you turn your thought back around to focusing on what you're thinking of, you immediately stop thinking about anything. You can actually feel it in your brain that there's like no thought. All of a sudden there's an empty thought, and you're like not having any kind of thought of anything.
Yeah.
At that point is when you have wiped your thoughts. And then if you're working on something, put a picture of the outcome that you want to experience on there. And so now you're resetting the matrix basically with the outcome that you want, and then you just focus on that outcome, and then you just release it. That's your intention. You just release it back to source. And
I love that.
It's really good when you're like, if you are, for some people, working out, painting, gardening, whatever activity they love to do that basically clears their thoughts, and they're not sitting there thinking about the to-do list or things that are plaguing them. Those are really great meditation techniques, because for most people, when they're painting or gardening or working out, they're not really thinking anything. They're kind of lost in their own activity. They're not thinking about their woos. And those are the great times in which also you got to that space of no thinking, and then insert the outcome of what you want to experience next. So those are some really great quick meditation techniques, and there's lots of ways to do it. But when you get to that point, if you are trying to open yourself to receiving information from source, God, consciousness, Allah, whatever you want to call it, you reach the empty space, and then information starts flowing in, and it's not yours, because this is not you were just thinking nothing. All of a sudden, all this information starts coming in.
Yeah.
That's typically what people call the modern vernacular they call downloads.
Oh, yeah.
But it's the same thing. It's just basically getting information. And so the question that I have for you, when you get to that part of getting these downloads,
Mhm.
how do you discern that the information is has integrity, or is it's maybe a little tainted? Because
Yeah.
how do you discern the
Well,
information is good?
yeah, I think I discern it by, first of all, I'm like you described, there's no thought involved. So it's just coming clear through. And secondly, for me, it's out of anything that involves love. So if it's out of love, then I know, that's where that's coming from. And yeah, I think if there's any other energy there as far as negativity or self-hate or self-criticism, I would say that would be, the discernment right there as far as what I
Mm-hmm.
do. I talk about this in my book too, that your default mode, like just noticing where your mind goes first is really important, because then you can kind of become aware of your own patterns that
Mm-hmm.
that you've been uh, trained into over the years. So if you're using a lot of what I call conflict language, like shouldn't, wouldn't, don't, can't,
Mm-hmm.
even just simple things like that, noticing how much are you saying that to yourself? How much are you criticizing or judging yourself? And then doing the same to others. That's a great also place to start. And then, you can start to retrain your brain by just starting to say, I want, I am, I get to, like those
Mm-hmm.
phrases. That's a real simple exercise. And just even like every time I'm in nature, I'm hiking or I'm taking a walk in nature, usually it's like I feel pretty clear, and can feel like I'm in my own energy. There was
Mm-hmm.
another little fun exercise that I learned from somebody too, from one of my voice teachers. She taught me, like, sometimes we have, it's not necessarily bad, but we just have a lot of people in our field of energy. Like it could
Mm-hmm.
be, as there could be like guides or aliens, any kind of like, entity that you can think of. And there's sometimes, many times here to help you, but sometimes it's also helpful just to be in your own energy from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing she taught me was to bring the energy field in pretty close to the body, and then think of like just picking everybody out of the energy field and just placing them outside of it just for a
Mm-hmm.
little bit, and then just taking, and then once you've cleared everybody off of your energy field, you take the energy from the heart, you expand it out through that a smaller energy field, and then you feel that, and if that's
Mm-hmm.
your energy, so that's clear of because you have ancestors, you have guides, you have,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, aliens and all kinds of entities with you all the time. And they're
Mm-hmm.
many of them, I would say, if you're, it just depends on the person, but I would say for the most part, they want to help. And also, they're okay with you taking them out for a second so you could just be in your own space, So
Yeah.
that's what I experienced as well. And that was kind of good to also discern between, because um oftentimes I get messages from them as well, and it's like, and sometimes I just need to get clear, okay, what message is Allison, where's Allison right now? Like, what
Yeah.
does she feel like? It's just about feeling that. So that's a great way also to discern between that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the great things about consciousness exploration and consciousness evolution into higher realms of consciousness is that you've gone beyond understanding and knowing that you have a direct connection to God or source within you, and that you are one expression of infinite possibilities that is expressing um, source as its own creation and also independent of it. So, when you understand that everything is interconnected and also having its own independent journey, it's almost like source is basically having a multiple personality disorder.
Exactly.
Okay. And you just all of a sudden tapped into source, having a multiple personality disorder, talking to himself, not talking to himself, talking at itself, talking for itself, whatever.
Yep.
And somewhere in the consciousness of all these different personalities that you are connected to, not in you, but through the ethers, there's your identity, there's your voice sitting in that pool of consciousness as well. It's in Buddhism they call it the stream, the flow, the life force,
Right.
whatever. So you can connect to anybody in all of creation, and of course you can connect to source or God directly as well. But when you get into it's especially for the novice, it's really easy to get distracted and to
Yes.
get kind of played and pulled along. So
Mhm.
so discernment is, I say this over and over again when it comes to consciousness exploration. Discernment is a really, really strong tool that you have to have when you go into consciousness exploration, because you can literally just be in La La Land for a long time and not really,
Sure can. Yeah.
yeah, because everything's all wonderful and ooh, and you can kind of travel around and see different things and communicate with different things. I also want to say also for clarification with the alien, quote unquote alien consciousness that you may tap into as well, or to different collectives.
Mhm.
Because remember, you can communicate with any when you tap into through meditation, which Buddhists have been doing and Hindus have been doing for thousands of years, through hypnosis, through hypnotic meditation, through so many different ways that you could do it. When you tap into that, you come across these quote unquote alien consciousness. And for some people, they may have that as their guardian angel, as their guides, as the so forth, because prior to this incarnation as a human being, they were of that consciousness and were of that incarnation. So like if you were I don't know, a blue alien in some kind of planet,
Yeah.
and your mother is watching over you in this incarnation, but didn't incarnate, she would be your your ancestor guardian, that it's kind of looks like an alien or it has an alien consciousness, but it's still your mother's energy, but from a previous lifetime when you were an alien. So we get a little bit into that kind of ET consciousness contact and so forth. That goes into the starseed conversation on Toku children and Toku people in Buddhism. Completely off topic, but I just wanted to, because you mentioned the UFO and the aliens, that when you connect to source, that you may have some of those croppings of people communicating, because they're like, oh yeah, she's tapped into the source. Let's talk to her. So if you do get that, it's nothing to be scared of, but you do have to have discernment on the information that comes through. So let me ask you this, because this goes right into my next question. So during a time of massive social change, why is it important for us to align our mind and our body on a consistent basis, like constantly ground ourselves? Why is it important?
Because of just especially this day and time that we're in right now. It's you can get out of your body so quickly and get swept up into all the drama that's happening around you, and really get lost in what in coming back home to yourself. It's just there's so many distractions right now, and so I think it's important to learn how to first we'll start with the mind, like learn how to focus it, train it. Because if you've trained your mind, it's not going to be a tool for you anymore creatively in your life. It's going to end up being a form of suffering because it's just going to take you in all these different directions. And then you're going to think you are your mind, right? So we want to make sure that our mind is a part of this. It's a nice tool to have for our perception of our reality. And it's also not who we are. So realizing that it's something to be trained, just like your body, it is part of your brain is part of your body. So we have to train that as well. And you want to train it to focus on the things that you want to create in your life. And so that takes focus, and anything you show interest in your life is what's going to flourish and grow, as we've been told. So we truly are responsible for integrating that with our training, with our mind. So that's very important to learn about. First of all, what decide, make a choice in what you want to focus on and what you want to make in your life flourish and grow. And then from there, for me, it was, training my mind. I had been in a very negative mindset for most of my life. What I had learned from family members and just growing up, being ideas being projected on and those kinds of things. And I had to train myself to be more optimistic naturally, and from an authentic place. So with that, it's really, then you dive deeper into old programming that you experienced as when you were younger. One thing that came up for me recently was lack of choice. Sometimes we go through these things when we're children and we just take them to heart. But as adults, we understand the situation better, but we haven't actually resolved the program or the story within ourselves. So we can keep going through that until we really resolve it. And realize that, now you do have a choice. Now you can exercise your choice and start making decisions and owning those instead of letting other people make those choices for you. Right. So that's a big one right there. That was a huge program that many people do share as well, from childhood. And so that would be, and then using your imagination, so that opens you up to receiving more of what you want to focus on, more of what you want to create. Very simple concepts, but I'm finding that a lot of people aren't doing these things, right? Because we're getting swept up with all the drama. And then, go ahead.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm going to add, so it's when you are in the thick of, I call it a life lesson. Okay.
Yeah.
A dramatic event that is life altering, depending on this decision you make. And it's a tough decision because it's not like a neon light going, make this decision. This is as easy. This is the way to go. It's not like we have an oracle which is why psychics are, psychics and oracle services are still, a lot of people still seek them because they want that. Well, what's going to happen next to me in the next couple of years? If I make this decision, is this going to work out? And the answer is, you are making a decision and you are living through the decisions that you make. So what you could do is get as much information so you can make the most educated, sound decision for you. And that comes across with your intuition. And a lot of people do not listen to the intuition. They may have a gut feeling like, in this situation, I really don't want to do this, but there's all these other elements that are forcing me or pushing me to do something I don't inherently want to do.
Right.
And most people cave and they stay into that career longer that they don't like, or that company that they don't like, or in that relationship that they don't like, longer than they want to, or they get into a situation where they eat something that they don't want to eat, or they inoculate themselves with something that they don't want to inoculate themselves, or they buy the house that they settled for because they didn't want to look at other solutions. The list goes on and on. So what are the common reasons that you found that people do not listen to their intuition and then later on mostly regret it?
Yeah, well, a lot of people aren't in touch with their intuition, and that's because they haven't practiced. They haven't practiced leaning into that. And part of it too is that we have a lot of things that get in the way of that judgment and criticism. A lot of things that we grew up with that were projected onto us, we take into our adulthood until we really realize that that's not ours. And so that goes with your value system. So this all ties into that. So really, in order for you to get clear on what your values are and stick with them, or stay true to them. That's living in integrity, right? So you want to, what I do is I go back to connecting with my inner child. And every time I go back to that, I'm thinking like how, you know, where was I, what were the most early thoughts and feelings around something like this, and or like how did I use my intuition then, or what go back to a clear time in your life where you could really connect with that part of yourself. Were you curious? Were you open? Were you excited? All of these feelings, and then connect with that, and then then from there really start to play with what your values are, and ask yourself, are these values yours? Are they society's values? Are they your parents' values? Or have you really you know created values that are your own, like really owning your experience? Because we tend to outsource, like you were talking about, like our choices. And I used to do that all the time, go to other people to ask, well, what's next in my life, what should I do now, because I just didn't know how to make a choice. And it's up to us as individuals. Like, you can't do it wrong. You got to just try to, go forth, get curious. You're going to make mistakes, but do the best you can and follow your heart. It's like, start to connect and prioritize yourself, spending time with yourself every day so you can start practicing your gift of intuition. How do you receive information? How do you decipher through that information? Does it feel right to you? Does it feel true for you? And it's always, it's a practice like anything else. It took me a long time to really trust that. And so I started out using like kinesiology, doing the muscle testing to just play. It just was like a form of play. So I could, test it out and start to trust myself with some things. At first it felt really silly, but then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do this and go with it. So whatever my body tells me is going to be the way we're going to go here. So you can start with a practice like that by using like a muscle testing technique where you can just test, like, and ask yourself before you do your muscle test, is this in my highest and greatest good? Or is this in the highest and greatest good of all? And then you can get more detailed with your questions as well as you go. But that's the way to start. It's starting to practice getting comfortable with receiving the messages that you're getting, and then trusting what comes is right for you.
Right. And because we, regardless of whatever tradition you learn your value system from, whether it's Buddhism, Zen, Hindu, Christianity, the list goes on and on. I mean, there's like a 1.5 million different faith systems. So anyways, whatever tradition you learn your value systems from, many of them are pretty much the same for the most part. But the thing is that when people think of like your value system, they think of religious, like, what God you believe in, who you believe in. That's
Right.
in Buddhism, that's window dressing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's window dressing. You get past the window dressing, and at the core these are the foundations of how to make decisions, how to apply discernment, how to apply logic and reason, and how to make the best decision and navigate reality using your consciousness so that you manifest the next best, greatest experience. Now, you are going to make some mistakes because sometimes you might be going through a storm of an event where there's really no clear path, and there's nobody, everybody's going through it at the same time. So you might make a mistake halfway through and realize, oh, I shouldn't have taken that turn. But if you can learn from it so that it becomes muscle memory, that you don't make that mistake again, then you can move on. And usually, from my experience, Source is pretty graceful in giving people second chances and giving them opportunities and presenting synchronistic opportunities in front of them, because they're like, oh, you're ready for that next best experience because you've learned from it. So give me your example. I like the real world examples. For people who are looking for love and they just keep attracting a bad relationship, and it's the same relationship, the same person over again in different people, but it's basically the same character over again. But once they finally learn from it, and they learn that that they're better than this, and they learn what aspects of themselves keep attracting this, then around the corner they start attracting much more loving, peaceful, healthy relationships, because they don't need those old life lessons anymore. And dating decent people becomes much easier. They almost like fall on your lap. So I hear that a lot from people, and that can be applied in pretty much anything that we do. So we are going to make some mistakes. Don't punish yourself, and don't punish others for making mistakes that really weren't fruitful for them, because if they learn from it, they can grow from it, and they can navigate reality a little more smoothly, and the universe will present good options. I think in Christianity, they call that repentance.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
I think so. I
To
don't
repent.
know. Yeah, right. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You kind of trying to, sweep it under the rug, or, transmute it or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's in Christianity, they call that repentance. In the Eastern philosophies, that they call that learning from your life lessons, so that you know how to navigate reality much more smoothly, without making the same decisions that repeat the same outcomes before.
Exactly. That's where the reflection comes in, right? The reflection,
intuition.
Yeah. And with mistakes too, like, just, sometimes we can just be like, oh, instead of looking at, oh, shoot, I made the wrong turn, say, hey, I had an intuitive hit. Very cool. I'll listen to that next time. No big deal if you miss it. It's a practice. So you just got to keep trying, and that'll make your intuition stronger if you build that trust.
Yeah, I like that. So that goes into my next question. What can we learn from the common victim perpetrator roles in our life lessons? What can we learn? Because there's going to be times where, let's say you were the victim, and let's say your older sibling was the perpetrator, bullying you and beating you up, and later on you guys switch roles, and now you're the person helping your older sibling clean up their life. You guys switch roles, and you guys forgive each other, etc. That happens all the time for many people throughout their life. So the person that is your perpetrator may be your hero later down the road. When you need somebody to help you, you might not be the victim anymore. You might be. So what can we learn from this interchanging role that happens to a lot of people?
Yeah, there's so much we can learn from that. And, it's definitely looking at my past lives has helped me understand that much better. I played the victim in many of my past lives, and I'm realizing, like, in this lifetime, that that is something I am transmuting in this lifetime, not doing that again. And I think also, if we can, and it's hard, sometimes hard when you're feeling pain, and you're trying to have compassion in that moment. But again, it's really what we want to do, come to a place of responsibility for our part in all of this. And we've all played the shadow and the light in every lifetime that we've been in. I mean, we've done both, so it's seeing it from a broader perspective, instead of just what has happened. It's like and to me also, it's finding the lesson in that, when you can get past the pain and heal from it, and then transmuting that into something beautiful. And that creates compassion and unconditional love for others, because you can see more of the oneness and everything, and how it all works together. And there could be a situation where you felt like a victim, but maybe it was the best thing that ever happened to you in your life, because it created a catalyst for you to change or go in a different direction in your life. So it's all experiences after a while. We're just, but I think the problem lies is when we identify too much with that role, and that becomes who we are. But if we can get past the identity aspect and shed that part of ourselves, then we can begin to connect with those deeper aspects of what that symbolizes, what that means, what we can learn from it, from that experience. Can you have compassion for your perpetrator? That takes a lot of compassion and understanding in one person for that. But I think everybody's capable of it. It's just, again, it's like, it just depends on where you are in the process and what you're willing to, what you're willing to let go of as well. This has been a huge couple of years for really shedding identities, and people realizing they're not who they thought they were, they're not what they do, they're so much more. And so a lot of people are re-examining that right now, and reflecting on that, and realizing that, yes, the victim, we've all played the victim, and it's not, and it eventually, for me personally, it didn't serve me. After a while, I was like, I'm not living the life I really want to live, because I'm blaming everybody else for where I'm at or my issues. And that isn't working for me. I don't feel empowered by that. So what can I do now to become empowered? How can I start to take responsibility for my life and what I create, And so that's, I think, what we want to come to eventually.
Yeah.
But again, it depends on where someone's at with it. But I think it all starts with the self-reflection aspect. If you have enough courage to start to want to take responsibility for your life, and to start reflecting on your life, examining it, then that's a huge step forward, in my opinion.
Yeah. This question about the energy of the victim and perpetrator roles is really essential in the human experience, from my understanding and from my observation with various clients, because I also do past life meditation, hypnosis consultations. And sometimes it requires looking at those different outlets or different tools to be able to go and understand on a psychological or on a spiritual level what is holding down your energy, what are the dense energies, what's the blockage on your consciousness that's keeping you down from going all the way up in consciousness. So in short, everyone, your energy is based off your consciousness, and your consciousness is what steers and navigates you to different parallel realities or different realities, and manifest different experiences. So if your consciousness is always paranoid of getting the car accident, you're going to manifest that car accident. Everybody's done this. Everybody knows this is a truth. They've done these law of attraction types of exercises all over the place. It is a fact that your consciousness is what creates your external reality that you experience within the hologram or within the matrix. But if you don't want to have those unconscious programs and things manifesting, then you need to clean up your consciousness in order to get into higher levels of consciousness and experience higher and higher experiences that you manifest within your existence. You need to clean up those dense energies stuck in your aura field, stuck in your consciousness. So in short, you got to clean up your consciousness. And so if there's something that triggers you, like a mommy daddy issue, for example, or maybe a bullying issue that just triggers you, then that's what you need to work on. You might have an unconscious program that you haven't let go of, maybe being bullied by your older brother who used to use you as like a punching bag because he was having issues communicating his issues that he was dealing with, and so it was just easy to take it out on a little brother. That happens oftentimes in families, but then you grow up and it's a trigger for some people. They still hold on to that resentment. So
I had
when those come up, you have to address that.
Exactly. I shared a story about being bullied in the book, and I shared it mainly because I wanted to share with people how this manifests into reality. It's not always like obvious, and
explain to people exactly the story and how did this unconscious program that's stuck in your consciousness that you didn't know existed manifested later on in life.
Yeah. So this was part of other experiences that I had was with a kid where there's this boy at my school. I think it was 6th grade, and he was just tormenting me. Every day, like, he was bullying me. He would be in the halls and trip me and do all this. It was really, after a while, I was just like starting to get depressed because he was always there and always tormenting me, and it was awful. And from that experience, I just started being like, oh my God, is just me being myself? Is that pissing people off? Or they, is this what I'm like is this what I'm creating, like, for being me? And so from that experience, in addition to other experiences I had, because I was just like an outgoing person and I just did my thing. And I think, I don't know, that might have threatened other people at times. And I really didn't pay attention to how that people, reacted to that so much until they reacted to me. And, I just was an outgoing and friendly and loving person is how I thought I was. And I wanted to connect with people. And so I don't know, for whatever reason, he tormented me. And then I was like, oh my God, I need to change who I am. I need to shapeshift into somebody else. So I'm not noticed. I don't want to be, I don't want to feel this pain anymore. I need to really dim myself to fit in. And so I went by this story of like, I'm pissing people off just by being me. So I better be somebody else. I better be whoever someone wants me to be. And so I started doing that. And then of course, gymnastics, being a gymnast didn't help because like I'm having to shift into that, like, as a gymnast, you're really forming into whatever your coach or your judge wants you to be and that kind of thing too. So it was kind of a double whammy.
Mhm.
And so what that did, that experience, being the victim, it didn't exactly, it translated into me really hiding myself and really
Mhm.
not wanting to be seen and wanting to fit in. And when that happens, it doesn't serve anybody because you're not really exposing who you are. And each person is such a gift in their unique way, in their own personal expression. And when you hide that from people, or you try to be what you think they want you to be, it's a disservice to them as well. So I realized that oh my God, that one thing that happened to me that I thought was not a big deal at all and I felt like I got over was following me into my adulthood and how I responded to people in my adulthood, my professional life, friendship, everything. And I was suffering inside because it wasn't fun for me to not be me because I had forgotten who I was during that time too. I was like, okay, I need to find myself again because she's like hidden way, way somewhere. And so anyway, that's an example that I gave in the book is like, these little things that happen or big things that happen when we're younger, we think we've resolved them by just getting older and becoming adults and understanding it from adult perspective. But actually it's still there. It's still running in your subconscious. So it's up to you to acknowledge that and resolve that trauma. And then you can go into your adulthood without feeling like you're in a survival mode state in your subconscious,
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our unconscious behavior patterns that people call your beliefs,
Right.
your programs, your unconscious conditioning, whatever names you want to use for it. They become triggers. And we started this interview where you said, I need to come out of my shell. I need to put myself out there. I need to stop hiding back in the background.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so
Exactly.
you just proved that this incident that you didn't think anything of was sitting in your consciousness, unconsciously influencing your decision in your life
Yep.
in all different areas by kind of fitting in, holding back, trying to like not make waves, all
Exactly.
that kind of stuff. So when we do these exercises and integrate higher levels of consciousness, um, a lot of it is self-reflection. A lot of it is a little repentance, if you want to use that word. learning from your life lessons and then transcending them. A lot of it is forgiveness of yourself and let alone others, because they mirrored and showed you how you reacted to that. You could have done a complete opposite, but you reacted the
Yes.
way you reacted. And because you reacted the way you reacted, because that was what you chose to do, it produced an outcome of how you were going to be moving forward. So this happens a lot when people start working on cleaning up their consciousness. They come across these little mini triggers. They're like, I didn't know that I had stuck energy there. Okay, I gotta clean that up. I got stuck energy here about being bullied from my brother or being spanked by my mom or whatever. So
Right.
there's so many different ways in which we use these victim perpetrator life lessons. And one of the best things to do is to find the higher road, find the higher path, find a way to look at the situation and pick the higher expression of how you're going to react to it. So, like for example, we got to give people tools, because it's people can talk about how until they're blue about how they were victimized,
Right.
but when they're in those situations, we got to give them tools that they can use and apply in those situations. So, like, if your children are bullied now, I know your son is grown up, but if your children were bullied in grade school, what kind of tools did you give them, like talk tracks, or did you give them any kind of tools to kind of navigate that? Because every kid has a bullying issue.
That's true. Yeah. And my youngest was bullied when he was in middle school. And I would ask him every day, if he wanted to switch schools, if he wanted to stay and keep going through this, and he wanted to finish the year out, and he decided to finish the year out and then switch schools. So I left that choice up to him, and I was there to support him and love him through that process. Of course, if it gets to a point where your child is under a threat of violence or something, that's going to be completely different. But yes, every kid gets bullied just because they seem different, or they look different, or they're not quite the same as everybody else in the group. So um yeah, and it's unfortunate, but it's pretty normal for most kids to go through. And I think it's really hard to be a parent and to watch your kid get bullied. And I think you want to take care of the problem. You kind of want to jump in there and save them. And at the same time, it's also important for them to have their own way of, I guess, figuring it out, and trying to, because they're going to learn from it too. And if sometimes if you just take them away from the situation, or save them. This is what came up for me as I was going through that with him, is that, I want him to really own his decision of wanting to leave the school. If that's really what he wants, we'll do it in a heartbeat. If he wants to stay and see this out, then, and that's what he decided to do. He decided to stay the rest of the year. And then at the end of the year, he wanted to change school. So that's how we handled it. And then therefore he was able to own that experience a little bit more. And he knew I was there to support and love him, and I was going to help him if he needed the help. I was there. But ultimately he did it himself. So, he
Yeah,
handled it. So
that's
um
good.
and
That's
we,
good.
talked to teachers too, and everybody kind of was involved, but it wasn't like, it all worked out because we just, I didn't jump in there. Nobody jumped in and tried to save the day. So, that was
Hmm.
helpful, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of different ways in which, when I talk about providing tools to handle these life situations, tools is not just like tools, like a physical, like a
Right.
hammer tool. Tools are also talk tracks, like role playing. If this happened, what would you say? Like, I have a 7-year-old and she's in first grade, and they're going through kid conversations, switching lunches or switching seats at the bus. I mean, kid drama.
Right. Right.
Kid drama. But anyways, it's earth shattering for them because they don't have any benchmark for any other
Exactly.
kind of drama. And so, she'll present the bus drama that day, whatever the deal is. I didn't sit in my same seat like I always sit on. Somebody else took my seat. I didn't know what to do. And I said, okay, well, let's role play. And so my husband and I would listen. My husband and I would listen to the drama, and then we would role play pretending to be other kids. And so then she would tell us what typically would happen. Well, what if this, and we're like, we'll role play, and then we'll role play different scenarios, so that she has the talk tracks and has a couple different things that she can easily pull out from her bag of tricks to be like, I'm going to say this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to offer this, or whatever. And so she got into the situation again where her and another friend were wanting to sit with a third friend, and neither wanted to give. So the solution was they all sat there and squeezed in. So, it's supposed to be 2 in a seat, but 3 skinny little girls sat into one row on the bus together, and that was the solution. But they were all happy, and they figured out a solution because they talked back and forth. Well, let's switch seats. I don't want to switch seats. Well, I'll switch seats with you, and we could take turns on another day. I don't want to take turns on a day. Well, I don't want to leave. Okay, then fine. Well, all 3 are going to sit here and just settle. And that was the solution. And they were all happy. They found a solution to that. But anyways,
that's good.
It's kind of it's elementary example.
Yeah, it's a great example.
But when we're going through life, most of our life lessons are not violent. Okay,
that's true. Yeah,
it's not violent. Most of our life lessons are not us getting our face smashed in, or we're getting brutalized, or we're getting in a car accident. Yes, those really, really dramatic episodes can happen and do happen to many people. But for the most part, most of the life lessons that have triggers and that we hold in our consciousness as unconscious baggage, holding down our consciousness, they are these soft life lessons. Okay, yes. I call them soft, the opportunities for building soft skills. And oftentimes the tools to navigate these soft life lessons are having various conversations that you know how to navigate, how to address, learning how to talk to certain people a certain way, learning how to distinguish and assess your environment and make emotionally intelligent decisions and how you're going to behave or what you're going to say. There's all these soft skills, and a lot of people don't have these soft skills to navigate. So when somebody's trying to be a perpetrator and you happen to fall into the victim role, you can easily diffuse the perpetrator role by having the skills to be like, why are you doing this? Because we're both friends.
Right.
I like you, you like me. I'm sure we could find some way where we can both be happy.
Yeah.
All be happy without having to make our friend, with my daughter, without having to make our friend choose between us two. Can't we just be a trio?
Yeah.
And that was the solution. So
that's great.
This is a simple example.
Communication is so important. And I didn't really get that when I was a kid. And I had no idea how to do any of that. And so my husband and I have made it a point to, as our kids have gotten older, to, dinner time, we all sit together, and, at the table, and we talk about things that happened in the day. And this is also where we talk about things like that. And we would when the kids were younger. And I think that's a great idea for parents, is to help them navigate that, because they have no idea how to do it. There's a lot of things that just catch you off guard when you're a kid, I think, and you just, and
they're small. I mean, God bless the kid that bullied you, and I hope everything's fine, but he ended up 30 years later in a book. That's how much of that little incident.
Hey,
that's how much of that little incident
helped me. Yeah.
Impacted you in your consciousness. It was a soft life lesson. It wasn't like he bashed you in the playground or anything, but every single day. But that little incidents end up
Yeah.
coming into anyways, let's get past this conversation. But
Okay.
this is a big conversation about the victim and perpetrator roles, and how do you navigate the victim role so you can become the hero, and how you navigate the or diffuse the perpetrator so that they
They don't have the
don't go down
power.
that path. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So all that stuff. And I did this a lot with my other podcast, which I am retiring, which is my CVAR podcast. And for the CVAR podcast, it was you have these people who are injured by the inoculation that they took, who are heavily censored, being told they're crazy and suffering all this stuff.
Right.
And instead of being the victim, they channeled all of that angst into telling their story and getting the story out and communicating and connecting with other people who are like-minded, who are going through the same situations, and supporting and championing each other's recovery, and championing each other's detox, and championing each other's you know we I don't know if it's their basically their pathway back into good health. So
Yeah.
that's how they took the higher road, took the hero road, and became the hero. Instead of the victim, they became the hero in the story, because they really are the hero in that story.
Yeah, that's
And
beautiful.
yeah, and they just closed out all the naysayers and all the people who wanted to poo-poo and um tell them that they're crazy and they have nothing of value to share. But instead, they just focus on telling your story and being there for other people who are going through the same struggles. And it's a beautiful journey that they're going through, but it is a very hard journey
Yeah.
to turn the victim into a hero.
It is a very hard journey. It
Yeah.
takes a lot to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So what tips can you offer to clean up our unconscious recurring programs that hold down our personal oral fields? I know there are a lot in the book, so and like I said, any part of the book you can scan through, and they
Yeah.
all sit independent, and like little
Yeah.
nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah, I wanted to do like bite-sized pieces of that, because for people to digest and really assimilate in their consciousness, for that very reason, and enjoy the process too, because sometimes we make healing so hard and so much about suffering and feeling the pain again. And the what I wanted was to create a space for people where they can not have to revisit the pain so much, but acknowledge what is, and transmute that into something beautiful, like what you're talking about with a group of people. um because if we keep going through the pain, I mean, that just keeps that victim mentality going, right? And it's not really serving anybody. And so one of the tools that I really love to use for this whole thing, I've used a lot, and I mention it in the book, is really connecting with your inner child. Your inner child just ultimately wants to play. And your inner child is a symbol of your subconscious. So the subconscious idea is very abstract and it's hard to connect to. But when we can look at our subconscious as our inner child or inner children, then we can connect with them through the heart. And then what we're doing is we're learning how to reparent ourselves. So we're, by through our inner children, and we kind of get a do-over to meet those needs that were not met when we were younger. And then let our child go out and play, because you have kids, and when they want something, they're going to bug you until they get it, right? It's so there's the same thing with the inner child. They're going to keep pulling at your pant leg until you pay attention to what needs to be acknowledged, right? And so I think about, like, why not just connect with them, love them, acknowledge them, meet their needs, and then let them go play. And that'll help you go play. It'll inspire you to be more creative and to tap into that part of yourself as well.
Yeah.
So there's a small exercise that I give for that. And so it's basically, you can be in a meditation, and let's say something triggers you, and for me, what I usually do is I think, okay, what age comes up for that trigger, or that feeling? And then usually whatever age pops up is the age that I'll go with. And then I'll picture that age of myself in front of me. And I will talk to to her and ask her, you know, what she needs and how I can support her, how I can love her, what can I do for you? And she'll tell me very simply, usually it's a very simple answer. And then I can, you know, give her what she needs and tell her I love her and now you can go play and just kind of it's a very simple way to
Mhm.
resolve it, but in a way it just it creates kind of takes away a lot of the anxiety that we're feeling, you know, under the current by not really just looking at these things
Mhm.
that are in with us, you know, all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so yeah, so that's one of the tools that I use. It's very simple and you can do that in a meditation.
Mhm.
And I do a regular practice of anything something comes up, like I try to I connect with the feeling, and it is that you know, sometimes it can be a memory that you connect with,
Mhm.
and that's usually, you know, what it's around, and I go with that, and that's what I clear, you know, is that whatever program or issue that came up from that was in
Yeah.
the past. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
you
I
know,
like that.
time is, you know, you can do anything from the
Mhm.
past, you can clear it now. You know this.
Yep.
You know, it's not,
Yep.
there's no, yeah. So
I'm glad you brought that up
that's what's
because
so awesome.
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that is exercise that anybody can do right now. And let me explain this exercise that you just touched on as well. I call it the time travel eraser.
I like
Eraser.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, like you're the time, because remember we had earlier conversation about consciousness. We are all interconnected and interweaving within the
Yes.
consciousness of God, source, whatever you want to call it, in the universe. And it is in each and every single one of us, watching and growing and letting us also experience our own individual identity and consciousness and journey. So, in that realm of interconnectivity of all of creation, when you're in that meditation where you blank out and clear your thoughts, and then you insert a thought of what you want next. You can also use that same meditation technique where you have reached that 0 point in your consciousness where you're having no thoughts. And then, if in your adult life or in your life now you've uncovered a trigger or a situation that just really irks you, then you know it's usually a trigger. Then you know, okay, there's some soft spot around this issue that I haven't addressed. So do a little self-reflection, come up with why you feel that way, where did it come from, blah, blah, blah. But once you identified and done that self-reflection exercise to address that trigger, then when you do that meditation and you get into that empty space of thinking of nothing, imagine you at the time of that trauma. So let's say it's the example of the time of when you were a child being bullied. Okay, in your adult self, you're doing meditation, you've emptied your space, you insert the image of yourself at that time with that traumatic event, and then you tell yourself the wisdom and give yourself the tools and the chalk tracks and the options and anything you want to
Yes,
tell your
exactly.
younger version.
Yeah.
Just tell yourself that, like, you're kind of like you're using consciousness and the magic, the technology of source and consciousness and time traveling to give yourself a message about this traumatic event that you are going through and how to navigate it more smoothly so that it doesn't ripple back forth to
Exactly.
your older self and you're still making unconscious decisions based off of this specific dramatic event that is unconsciously programming and still running that unconscious program
Yeah.
into your adulthood. That's a quick, simple exercise. Everybody can do it. I do it with my clients all the time when it comes to very serious traumatic events like incest and rape
Yes.
and other things. They literally reprogram that. And once they reprogram that, they just instantly feel like there's like a big heaviness that just
Yeah.
lifted. But if you've ever had a situation, and they say this in Buddhism and metaphysics, if you ever had a situation that was really plaguing you, you really up in arms about a certain situation that you're dealing with in your life, and then all of a sudden one day, it doesn't bother you anymore. You like all of a sudden had an epiphany. It didn't bother you. You saw it differently. It doesn't trigger you anymore, but for a long time it did.
Yeah.
That is an indication that some point in the future self of you had made some kind of decision and come to some kind of terms, forgiven, let go of that, and transmuted that energy back to the old version, past version of yourself. And then all of a sudden you're that kid going, that doesn't really bother me anymore. I'm not really angry at that kid anymore. And I don't know why it happened. But that's
all happening right now, right?
It's all happening right now. Your future self is communicating to your past self, who's getting the benefit of releasing that anger or that angst.
Yes. You can also communicate with your future self too. That's another thing to do. But yeah, like you're saying, you're liberating your inner children. You're liberating them from that's happening all now, really. That felt like it was the past, but not really. And we're all these different versions of ourselves. We're in many different dimensions at once. And so that's how it works, right? Because it's
a consciousness technology. And when you change and when you learn the life lessons, you have that you reprogram yourself, and you are basically communicating through consciousness technology to the version of yourself in the past that is experiencing that in real time, because it is all happening in real time. Then you heal that, and that version of you, that kid of you, is growing up without these like trigger unconscious programming that's been stuck on it from this and that experience. And in your life now, as you're looking at it, your reality has changed. Why is your reality changed? Your reality in Buddhism has changed, hence Mandela effect or parallel reality shifts, because you clean your consciousness by doing these types of exercises. So it all comes full circle. So anyways, so much in the book, because I love that you put little nuggets. And then when you think about those nuggets of information, you extract it further out. I mean, the conversation gets even more down the rabbit hole of consciousness. So how can we be a superhero to ourselves? So let's talk about that really quick. How can you be a superhero to yourself when it comes to, working with your consciousness?
Well,
your past, your present.
Of us. Yeah, but this is the chapter came about because I was thinking of this concept we have of saving other people and saving them from themselves, really what it comes down to. We're trying to save them from themselves, but that's weird. How can you really do that? And really all you can do is save yourself. And what that does is it helps everybody else. So, like we've been talking with the multidimensional self, when you clear a program within you, you're also clearing it within everybody, like all consciousness, like it gets cleared. So actually when you're working on yourself, you're working on everybody, right? And everybody you come across. So you're doing a service to that's everybody by saving yourself. So, and all you really can do is do that anyway. So for us to think we can save somebody else is an impossible task. And so what that, again, it comes into the martyr role, and all of that. And although there's so much like that people want to, there's so much good that people want to do. They want to help each other. They see themselves in each other and they want to help. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that, if you're under the illusion that you're actually saving somebody, then it's, maybe rethink that, because and you're not doing it for yourself, then that's a problem. So we want to kind of bring it back to helping ourselves first. And that, even with, we're here for our kids too. And we're here to, of course, guide them and be obligated to them and responsible for them. And at the same time, we're role models for them. So everything that we're doing, they're watching very closely to see what we do. And so you're also a role model for your kids. So if you're not taking care of yourself and doing the work for yourself, that's going to reflect on them as well. So it's just a different way of looking at superhero aspect is because we have this superhero mentality, you know, that like, oh, this person, somebody's going to come
Everybody
save us,
wants
or
to
we're
be
going to
an
save somebody
Avenger.
else. Exactly. But that's just so weird, you know, cause it's kind of, so it's just it's a strange concept. When I thought about it, I was like, huh, that's interesting, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every superhero movie always has self-reflection and growth.
Yes, exactly.
It's the same thing. You can't help anybody else until you clean up your own act.
Exactly.
But you know, in the concept of, and this is what I want to clear up in Buddhism too, because Yeshua ben Yosef was trained in the Buddhist monasteries as well. In the terms of saving other people, it's in the context of when you realize that you are all interconnected through consciousness, through source within you, and that your experience and your reality is an expression of the consciousness within you, and that's how you navigate the multiverse or reality, is through your consciousness. Then when you basically save yourself, you save everybody else, because everybody
Yes.
else is interconnected to you. So it's an inside job on an individual level, person to person to person. And the more people do their self-reflection and raise their consciousness, and through cleaning up all these little triggers points in our aura field, in our Merkabas, the more we clean our consciousness field, the higher and higher our consciousness and the higher and higher expressions and frequency of reality we experience. And so you actually end up being like it's infectious. It's, you know, it's infectious.
Exactly.
You become a love virus because you are so high in energy. So there's a great Buddhist quote. Buddha, the first one, he actually addresses this concept of saving other people and also saving yourself.
Yeah.
He says, no one saves us but ourselves. No one can and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. So each and every one of us is our own superhero, and we must walk our own path. That's why every good superhero movie always has a little bit of self-reflection and growth and kind of the struggle, and then they become they walk that path of the superhero. So let me ask you this. Lots of really good nuggets of wisdom in the book, by the way.
Thank you.
What is your last message for humanity?
Oh man. There was something that I posted on Instagram recently that said you can't know anybody else until you know yourself first. You know, it keeps coming back to that. Like I think I think your question was what's going to save humanity is for us to learn how to come back home to ourselves and find discernment within that, and find calm, a calm place and peace. And you know, because if we're always externalizing everything and looking outside ourselves for all the answers, we're never going to find peace. There's something to be said for having an experience and seeing it as an experience, because that's what we're here to do, right? So but then you also see things as like, okay, like you're saying, we're all coming from the same place. We're all coming from source consciousness. And so you know, many of the things that we do to each other we wouldn't do if we really understood that. But I think that the only thing that can really help with that is for each person to start prioritizing that space, that time for themselves, to start exploring that within them. And you know, it takes like creating a healthy body, of course, which I mentioned in the book, and how to do that as well, and setting that the foundational, you know, going by those foundational principles of health, and that's your foundation for having a healthy perspective. And then from there, you know, we're doing all the other work, the deeper spiritual work, the emotional, intuitive, getting into our intuition, aligning our mind, and all those things. You know, so many people stop at the health principles and they're like, okay, I'm good. But there's much more than that, because our body responds to us. It responds to what we're thinking, what we're, what our soul wants, it's working for you. It's a vehicle to work for you. It's not who you are, but it's here for you, is what I like to say. So if we can start to understand, more about ourselves in that way, I think we're going to be much kinder to each other. It's going to be a much better world. That new earth dream that we're bringing in is going to come more into fruition as we get into that. So I'm excited about what's to come. I feel like we're creating an entirely different reality at this point. And we can do that even better if people can start clearing their consciousness, as you say.
Gonna do a little laundry, huh?
Yeah.
we all got some dirty socks in our consciousness to clean up. I like that.
Old programs to get rid of, because we don't need those programs anymore, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Allison, thank you for a fun conversation. It was really delightful. So for more information on Allison's fitness training courses, podcasts, and to get a copy of her book, please visit her website, finallythrivingbook.com. And thank you kindly for listening to another enlightening conversation. Until next time, blessings.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the 5th dimension. For more information about today's guest, please go to the show description. For more information about Vaughn's metaphysical work, please go to merkabachakras.com. The views expressed today are for entertainment purposes and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or replace any medical or legal advice. Don't forget to subscribe for more interviews about the 5th dimension. Until we meet again, blessings.